As we've been discussing today, almost from the moment that we learned of this horrific slaughter in Newtown, Connecticut, we've been hearing politicians and special interest groups and MSNBC pushing gun control. And I was hoping today I wouldn't have to discuss this because it really is a grotesque diversion from focusing on the inhumanity that took place in that classroom and what these families are going through, which is unimaginable. And yet the voices are rising and rising throughout the day, and right now they're reaching a higher and higher pitch, and tomorrow and over the weekend it'll be a fever pitch on gun control. And so I can't be responsible behind this microphone and completely ignore this, folks. And there's nobody more competent and expert at this than my friend John Lott. And John Lott is with us, and I want to thank you for coming, John. And first of all, this is unbelievable, isn't it, this slaughter?
Oh, it rips your heart out. I mean, I don't know how anybody could react differently to this. And I understand the reaction of gun control proponents to push for gun control. I mean, I think it's misguided, and I think they'll do more harm than good. But I think everybody is motivated by the same thing in this case, and that is to try to save lives. I mean, it's the thing that motivates me in my talking about it, and once I found the results that I did in my research, to go and tell people about the results that I got. I'm sure it's the same thing that they are motivated by. I just think that, unfortunately, the rules that they do are just not ineffective. I think they actually make situations worse.
Well, John Lott, these horrific events happen from time to time. It doesn't make it any easier for anybody in this country to witness this, to hear about this. You worry about your own family and so forth. So why is it the wrong thing to do, then, when something like this happens, to be pushing for, like the mayor of New York comes right out, the mayor of Boston comes out, we have a number of members of Congress now, we have the special interest groups coming out, pushing for gun control. Why is that a mistake?
Right. Well, I think one thing to look at is what's been the common feature of these attacks, and it's something that I've been writing about for about 14 years or so right now, and that is time after time when you see these attacks occur, they take place where guns are banned. I'll just give you an example that I think is telling from earlier this year, the Aurora movie theater shooting. There were 7 movie theaters within a 20-minute driving radius of the killer's apartment that were showing the premiere of the Batman movie. Only one of those movie theaters posted a sign banning permanent concealed handguns in the movie theater. The killer didn't go to the movie theater that was closest to his home. He didn't go to the movie theater that had the largest theater. He went to the only one that had the concealed handguns banned. And I suppose the easiest way for people to think about this is, let's say, God forbid, some criminal was stalking you or your family, was really seriously threatening you with violent crime. Would you feel safer putting a sign in front of your home that said this home is a gun-free zone? Would that make you think that you would deter the criminal from attacking? And when I've asked gun control proponents, nobody would put a sign like that in front of their home. And there's a simple reason why they wouldn't do that, is that rather than repelling the criminal, they're actually telling him that that's an easier place for him to attack because the victims are going to be less able to go and defend themselves. And unfortunately, while people understand that for their own home, they don't seem to understand that for other places. So they wouldn't put a sign like that in front of their own home, but we put signs like that in front of movie theaters. We put them in front of some malls. But
and then, John, we have other circumstances. Rick Leventhal, Fox News, reported about a half hour ago on this program that the killer in this case took 3 guns that were legally owned by his mother.
Right.
And used them. But I also find in a number of these cases we're dealing with people who are who are mentally ill or mentally disabled in some cases. We don't know exactly what his situation is, although certain information seems to be leaking out there that maybe he had some conditions or so forth and so on. We find that too, don't we?
Look, the reason why these guys do these attacks is to commit suicide. You read their notes that they leave, their diaries, or look at their videos that they leave, and time after time, they want to die, but they want to kill themselves in a way that will make people notice who they were. In their sick minds, they want to kind of go out and have people notice them. And the blood-chilling thing that you see when you read these documents over and over again is that they want to get media attention, and they know that the more people they kill, the more media attention that they'll get. And so they're driven to try to find venues and places where they can kill as many people as possible. But, you know, they're planning these things months in advance. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever find out how long in advance this person did because he died. 75% of the time that these attacks occur, the killers die at the scene, and the other 25%, they planned on dying, but at the last moment they just couldn't bring themselves to shoot themselves. And, you know...
and the other people are saying that these schools should have armed guards, maybe retired police officers or police officers who are off duty. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you can do that, and then they'll find a different venue. Maybe they'll go to a sports stadium. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they'll go to a Little League game. Maybe they'll, I mean, there are things we can try and do to protect ourselves, but there's always going to be some level of evil in this world, isn't there?
Right. Well, I mean, I think we can learn something from Israel. I mean, you go back, look at, obviously they've had a terrorist problem since at least the 40s there in a serious way, and what you find is that for years they tried to do that policy where they would go and just put more and more police or military on the streets. And they found that they just didn't have enough money because terrorists have huge strategic advantages. If you have a terrorist on a bus, and let's say you have 2 police officers there, he has a couple options. He can either just wait on the bus until the police officers leave and then attack, or he kills the police officers or the soldiers first. And so what happened back in the early 70s is Israel realized that, you know, they just couldn't flood every place with enough military or police. And, you know, if the terrorist was simply patient enough, he would find some opening to go and engage in his attack. And so what they did was they started allowing citizens carry concealed handguns. You've had up to about 15% of the adult Jewish population in the country being able to carry. And whenever there's an increase in terrorist attacks, the national police chief will get on the radio and ask people to make sure that they carry their handguns with them at all times in order to try to protect the citizens that are there. And it's the same thing here. When, you know, after the Virginia Tech attack, the school there said, well, we're going to increase the number of campus police officers. You had something like 1 campus police officer for every 80 acres on duty at any time prior to the attack. After the attack, I think it went up to like 1 of every 40 acres. I don't know if you've been to Virginia Tech. I've given several talks there. There are these huge buildings made out of stone. Even if somebody was firing inside, there's no way you would hear it if you were right outside the building, let alone being able to cover 40 acres that's there. And so, you know, they could go and put police all over the place. The point is, you're exactly right. These people, and you see this in the methodical way that they choose venues now that don't have the possibility that people are going to be able to defend themselves, to go and engage in attacks. They'll either shoot the officer first if you put an officer there, or they'll go someplace else.
And yet people want quick answers. They want one-sentence answers, and the gun control supporters give them the one-sentence answer. If we had more gun control, there'd be less violence. If we had more gun control, would there be less violence?
Look, it's understandable, the reaction. You see something bad that happens. It happens with a gun. Your natural reaction, I think anybody's natural reaction is, if I can just get rid of the gun, the bad thing wouldn't have happened. The problem is you don't think about all the consequences of that. For example, what about all the defensive gun uses that aren't going to occur? Are you really going to be able to get rid of the guns? I mean, the research that I've done, third edition of More Guns, Less Crime, I can't find a country around the world that's imposed gun control, or a gun ban, and seen murder rates fall. Even island nations, kind of the ideal experiment that you would think. There's no neighbor that they can go and blame. And the reason is that criminals are able, even if you ban guns, people talk about background checks and what have you, even if you ban guns in an area, drug gangs bring drugs into the country. They're able to go and bring in the guns that they use to be able to defend those drugs. The problem is that it's the good, law-abiding citizens who turn in their guns, not the criminals. And to the extent that you disarm the law-abiding citizens relative to criminals, you get the perverse result that things get worse. And that's the reason why when we banned guns in D.C., when we banned guns in Chicago, we saw big increases in murders and violent crime after the ban went into effect. It would be nice if it was so easy, such a simple thing just to go and ban these things. But the problem is that applies to virtually all types of gun control. The question you have to ask yourself is, who are you most likely to disarm by having these regulations? We all want to take guns away from criminals. I'll just give you a simple example with these gun-free zones. Take something like Virginia Tech, in which 32 people were killed. If you're a professor in Virginia and you have a concealed handgun permit, you can carry a gun virtually any place in the state. There are very few places where you're not allowed to carry. One of the places you can't carry is on a university campus. If you are a professor and you accidentally carry a permitted concealed handgun onto a campus and you get caught, you're going to get fired. And if you get fired for a firearms-related violation, your academic career is over. You're not going to get hired by another university any place in the U.S. for a firearms-related violation getting you fired from another university. Think of the killer, though. Even if he lived, he obviously died in this case. If he lived, he would have been facing 32 death penalties or 32 life sentences plus other penalties. The notion that expulsion somehow would have been the key penalty that would have kept him from committing the crime is just absurd. That what you have is these penalties have a much bigger impact on the law-abiding good citizens, keeping them from being able to defend themselves. And so what you do is you end up creating a clear field, essentially sitting ducks for these criminals to go and engage in their attacks. I'm not saying the gun control people do this on purpose. I'm just saying they haven't thought through what they want to try to do. I understand their reaction just to go and ban guns, but they have to begin to understand, look, if there are even a few countries they could point at where gun bans lowered murder rates, there would be a debate here.
And I'm sitting here thinking, how could this guy have been stopped? How can this guy have been stopped? Unless on the way he had told somebody he was going to do these things or something of the sort. But sometimes, sometimes these things are not going to be stopped. Is that an outrageous statement?
Yeah. I mean, you can look around the world. Europe has about the same rate of multiple victim public shootings per capita as the United States does here. They have very extensive gun control regulations. Germany, which now has 2 of the 4 worst public school shootings, it takes more than a year to get a long gun. You have to undergo 2 psychological screening tests. It just shows that when you have people who are willing to take months to try to plan one of these attacks, they're going to be able to get a weapon. And individuals who are willing to die, in fact, they want to die, to go and commit these attacks, it's very difficult to try to stop them. And so, what you have to do is try to think of how can you take away what's in their warped mind, the gain. And their gain is to try to get publicity. And there's basically 2 things that you can do on that. One is...
All right, hold on. You got to hold on. Hold on. We're going to take you to the next segment, but I got to take a short break here.
Sure.
All right, we don't have a lot of time left, John Lott. Why don't you finish your thoughts and sum up
Well,
for
there's
us?
basically 2 things that I think are most important to do. One is, we talked before about what's in these guys' warped minds that they want to accomplish. They want to get attention. They talk about it explicitly time after time when you read things. One thing I've been asking for about 14 years is for the media to think twice before they go and publicize these guys' names. It would at least reduce to some extent, maybe a large extent, what motivates these guys. The second thing is we really need to deal with these gun-free zones. I understand the desire. People think if we just ban guns from an area, we'll make them safer. At some point, they have to realize that since at least 1950, with just one exception, all the multiple victim public shootings in which more than 3 people have been killed have all taken place where guns are banned. And it's just not the Aurora shooting. It was the mall shooting that just took place earlier this week. It's the Sikh temple. It's the other shooting in Wisconsin. You go down the list time after time, and you see these posted signs banning people from being able to carry guns in the places where these attacks occur. These banned areas are just a tiny fraction, a % or 2 of the area in these right-to-carry states, and yet that's where these attacks keep on occurring.
All right, my friend John Lott, the name of your book again?
Is everybody there? Can't hear.
What is the name of your book, John Lott?
Oh, the 3rd edition of More Guns, Less Crime.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in for tonight's program. But I think it's important because apparently now all types of folks in Hollywood are tweeting out for gun control. Maybe we need Hollywood control. Maybe we need movie control. Maybe we need TV control. Now, I don't really support these things, but I'm just making the point. Rudy Giuliani said on Fox today, everybody put your politics aside, let's have a national discussion on what to do, and he was talking about guns. I say, okay, let's have a national discussion, and why limit it to that? Why not talk about gaming? Why not talk about movies? Why not talk about TV? Why not talk about what goes on in our classrooms, whether it's public schools, colleges, or universities? Yeah, where we exclude things like morality and faith and right and wrong and good and evil and things like that. They don't really want a national discussion at all. We know what they want. Meanwhile,